For the last couple of years, my daily monitors at home were two ISO FS2735s, which are 27-inch Quad HD 144Hz monitors, and I would say one of the best all-arounders since they launched back in 2015, where fast Quad HD was the current hype. They also came with a pretty spot-on IPS panel, so for a pretty long time, I really had no reason to get anything else. And keep in mind, we tested and reviewed loads of monitors since then, and I always kind of went back to my ISOs. Until now. I just feel it's like the right time to move on and find a new monitor that will be great for pretty much everything. So for work, for gaming, and for creating content. And after doing a very long search, because it is very important to always do your research and just find what fits you the best, I ended up buying this LG 38GN950. So this one came out this year, and the name sounds familiar because it's the successor of the GL950 from last year. And I found a bunch of reviews of the old one online, but I didn't find any of the new one, and they are a bit different. So I figured it would be interesting to just make one myself. It is a 38-inch ultra-wide monitor with a higher than usual resolution of 3840 by 1600 pixels, with an almost 100% DCI-P3 color gamut, HDR 600 support, 160 Hz refresh rate, and it uses one of LG's super fast nano IPS panels. So basically, it's a Quad HD ultra-wide on steroids. It is bigger, it has higher resolution, it is faster, and in theory, one of the absolute best high-end monitors you can currently buy. But as you would expect, it is not cheap. So I paid 1,300 euros for this one a few weeks ago on Amazon, but right now it's listed at 1,400 euros or $1,650, so it's quite pricey. But yeah, let's check it out, see if I made the right decision here, and will I finally say goodbye to my ISOs. Let's go. This video is brought to you by Corsair and their K60 RGB Pro. This affordable mechanical keyboard comes with Cherry's brand new super smooth Viola switches, a nice aluminum finish, and of course, a bunch of RGB. Check it out using the links in the description below. While this LG isn't the biggest monitor I've seen, it is 90 centimeters long and around 30 centimeters deep, so it is still a beast of a monitor and you will need a pretty large desk for it. Design-wise, it is pretty okay. It does have a bit of a gamey look to it, and I'm not a huge fan of some of the red details it has, but that is, pure personal preference. What I do love though is that the curve isn't very strong at only 2300R. You do really want a monitor this wide to have a curve, but I think when a curve is too strong, it can interfere with some creative work like video editing in my case. Now, the overall build quality is pretty good, I would say. The material quality and the finish are completely fine, but there is definitely some wobble where the stand meets the panel, so I do suggest getting a sturdy surface under it to minimize that wobble. The stand itself is height adjustable and it can be tilted, but you cannot flip it vertically for obvious reasons, but you can VESA mount it if you want to. The cable management is present, but it's also a bit basic and there's not much else going on the monitor itself. I kind of wish they added a few extra things like a headphone hanger, for example, to, again, match the high price of this thing with a few more features. But again, that's just my preference. I do have to say LG is one of the few brands that gets their RGB right. The big RGB circle on the back looks great, it offers a nice amount of RGB and it is exceptionally bright, which means that this is one of the few monitors where its RGB actually has a really nice ambient effect as well, and it's not just some gimmick that you'll never actually see. When it comes to connections, you get a single DisplayPort 1.4, two HDMI 2.0 ports, a USB hub and a headphone jack. Now, considering HDMI is pretty useless at this resolution and this refresh rate, it will be limited to something like 75 or 85 Hz. I would have preferred a second DisplayPort header instead. There are no speakers either, but that is completely fine for me as I personally don't really care for monitor speakers and I use headset all the time, but it might be relevant to you. Another thing that LG does right is the OSD control. There is a little joystick under the panel along with a little scroll wheel, and the OSD layout has really improved over the years, I would say. LG went from having a really basic OSD to one of the more comfortable, straightforward and easy to use ones. Next to the usual monitor features, there are some gaming features as well, like the on-screen crosshair, for example. And I'm really happy they offer the LG software control as well. So, you can do all this with a mouse and a keyboard too. And so far, when we look at the outside of this monitor, it is just a monitor like any other. Nothing really screams it should cost over $1,600 like it does. But that completely changes as soon as you start using it. Now, my personal motivation for getting this monitor was its larger size and its high resolution that give you that extra amount of workspace over the two 27-inch monitors I work on at home, but also over a 34-inch Quad HD monitor that I have behind me. Now, I work in Premiere, and those 24% of extra pixels you get are a much bigger deal than you would actually expect, and it just allows you to fit so much more on one image. Now, of course, there are even higher resolution displays out there, but that would mean sacrificing speed for gaming, and I don't think I'm really ready to, give up on that one just yet. But it's not just the workspace here. The panel itself is pretty great as well. It is sharp, the colors are fantastic, and it's just, really bright. The maximum brightness is very good, standing at 473 nits, which on a 38-inch monitor is enough to make you squint. It is not extremely dimmable, but it's more than enough in my opinion. Where it really shines is the color performance, with more than 93% DCI-P3 color gamut and about 100% DCI-P3 color volume. So basically, this panel can display a wider color range than the vast majority of ultra-wide and gaming monitors on the market. Because, for example, for most gaming monitors, we're happy if they can do full sRGB color spectrum, while here you get around 140% of that. Color accuracy is pretty good too, as they come calibrated out of the factory. It is not perfect, but it is close enough that you could easily do some proper photo or video work right out of the box, and you don't really need to stress out if you don't have the tools to calibrate it yourself. Now, the default mode is good enough, but there is a slightly more accurate sRGB mode included as well, and you can use that if you prefer. Now, the gamma curve is a little bit off, and the white point is set a little bit to the warm side of daylight. So if you want to, you can calibrate those values yourself to perfection and just use that. One area where LG IPS panels usually do poorly is the contrast, and this IPS panel is unfortunately no exception here. 924:1 just, isn't great. I think it's fine enough considering all other strengths of the panel and the fact that there is no other alternative to this one. And I don't mind it even when I'm playing games in the dark, but that's definitely where LG should try and improve in the future. Viewing angles are great, as you would expect from an IPS panel. Just remember that curved monitors like this one do look best when you're sitting straight in front of them. Also on this model, uniformity is pretty good, and there isn't much in terms of backlight bleed. It's not perfect, as it is a huge panel, but it's close enough. Aside from the color performance, gaming performance is actually one of the best things as well. I'm still working on a good response time setup, but it's instantly clear that this is in fact one of the faster IPS monitors you can get. It is really hard to show how good it looks through a YouTube video like this one, but a combination of these great colors and good speed just guarantees that awesome gaming experience. Now, big immersive HDR games look exceptionally great on this one, but even World of Warcraft, for example, or Call of Duty Warzone look much better than on my previous monitors. Now, you do want to keep the overdrive setting to normal or fast, as if you put it on the highest setting, there is a lot of nasty overshoot. Now, LG has to include that, so it can market this monitor as a 1 millisecond panel, but I would say it's completely unusable and I would not recommend it at all. Now, as this is a display HDR 600 monitor, it does have an above average HDR performance, but it's not really exceptional. It has a very limited local dimming feature, as it only has 12 zones, and the peak HDR brightness caps out at around 500 nits in my testing. It still looks better than the HDR 400 monitors that honestly don't really add anything to the experience. So I would say on this one, you can at least say that HDR feature adds something and is worth trying. Just don't expect anything like an OLED experience, as this doesn't even come close to that, but it's still better than most gaming monitors. One thing where this GN model is different than the older GL950 models is that this one doesn't actually have a G-Sync module, but it is G-Sync compatible instead, and it has Freesync premium support. Now, I personally don't think that's a huge deal, especially because it does make this version, more than $200 cheaper than the last year's model, and you will still get proper variable refresh rate support if you use any of the recent graphics cards. Now, keep in mind, this monitor has nearly the same amount of pixels as a 4K monitor, so getting high frame rates requires a pretty strong GPU, and something like a 2080 Super will be just about fine, but ideally, you do want to get something like an RTX 3070 or 3080, or the new AMD 6800 or 6800 XT cards. So let's recap here. While I definitely see some things that LG should improve on, like the contrast of the panel and the stand quality, there's still no arguing that this is just one of the best monitors on the market today, and that's mostly because there is just nothing else like it. LG makes this panel and they don't seem to be sharing it just yet, and there is no AU Optronics or Innolux alternatives for, other monitor manufacturers to use. And while I would say that some of the general details could be improved, it is the panel that makes it so special. It gives you that high resolution and more workspace, which is perfect for productivity. It offers fantastic colors for any color critical work, and it is nice and fast for some pretty good gaming experience as well. It is definitely pricey, but if you want a nice step up from typical Quad HD dual screens or ultra-wides, especially if you're kind of serious about your creative work and you still want to get that high-end gaming experience, it is definitely worth its cost. Now that's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this video and you like my new monitor. Let me know in the comments down below what monitor do you use or what do you plan on getting. And while you are there, please give me a like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to never miss an upload. See you in the next one. Bye!